Let's make some dark ambient R&B like Why with free plugins. Now, Brent Faiyaz's Why was released on Larger Than Life in 2023, and it is a great example of dark ambient R&B, and the bounce is classic Brent Faiyaz Sonder. You've got that 90s Timberland inspired kind of bounce, and I'm going to break that all down. And if we look at the theory behind this song, it's going to give you the tools to create similar samples and tracks, elevate your production, make your sample game super fire. And the bonus is I'm using free plugins here. I mean, I'm cheating a little bit because my mastering chain is not necessarily free, but you have to let me off for that because I'm going to be sharing loads of source as always, guys. So stay tuned to the very end to make sure you capture everything. Our progression is a 4-3 progression. Now, the easiest way to explain this is to take everything to C major, and in C major we count up from C 4 notes and we get an F. Our first chord is some kind of F chord, and the 4 chord in any major scale is always a major chord. We build a F major triad using an F, an A and a C. We get this. If we add one more note, which is the major 7th, we can find a major 7th by taking our root note and going one note underneath the root note, an octave above. We are left with an E. Beautiful chord, a F major 7th, and all we need to do in order to find the 3 chord is to copy this over, drop it down by a semitone, and we take this major 7th, we drop it down one note to make it a minor 7th. We take the 3rd, which is a major at the moment, and we drop it down one note to make it a minor 3rd. And we have a E minor 7th chord, an F major 7th to an E minor 7th. And I know it doesn't sound like it, but this is the progression behind Why, and also many other Brent Faiyaz tunes. I do this all the time, but we can drop these notes down an octave to make inversions of the chord. If we take these in the key of C major and we move them down by 4 steps, we are going to be in the key of A flat major, which is the key of Why. This is all the theory that you need to know to create a song like Why. So let's jump into what I use to create this ambient textured sample with free plugins. The initial sound that I went for was actually in the stock sounds. If you look up keys and you choose key station, and this sound was going to form a nice ambient padded bass for our sample. You can see this is utilizing 3 oscillators of the synth. All the hard work's done for you because this patch is already made, but I did change a couple of things. I just changed the attack here on envelope 1, which is the amp envelope of the sound itself. I just tweaked a couple of things here in envelope 2 and 3, but nothing to really change the sound in a major way. Inversion wise, I just changed this first chord a little bit. You can hear as the sound continues to play, the filter opens up a little bit and we get a little bit more fizziness coming through. And that's something you can see on filter 2 here. These 2 oscillators are sent to filter 2. We've got quite a bit of opening up there, but you don't really need to know too much about what's going on here, but this is a really good free starting point. I added some chorus, I added some origin where instead of RC20, this is a great free alternative. I used Logic stock phaser, quite a hard setting here, and this is a really good free stereo width plugin, wider. I'm going to put all of the links to these plugins in the description. With all the plugins in, you can hear that that phaser is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. In that intro section, the next sound that I added, another instance of Vital. This is my mid-range sound that's really handling a lot of the granular ambient textures going on. If I mute all of the processing, we just look at the sound itself. If you search pluck here, you're going to find plucked string, and I pretty much left it as it was. I copied the MIDI straight across from my last sound, switched some of the notes around, and I just added an extra note on top. Sounds like this without any processing on it. Really simple, boring sound. We livened it right up with plugins, again, all free. Started with this tail chorus, added origin again. By using this in the middle here, this is kind of like giving you that underwater 40 Drakey kind of effect from back in the day, like resampling the sound, like what a plugin called the Decimort does, that I know I should be able to use, is taking the sample rate right down. This is my secret sauce that I've shown several times. Free plugin, granulizer. I've just changed the pitch on these various streams. We've got 12, 24, and we've got -12. It's giving us those little granular trails. Then I've got this delay, another free plugin, Ghost Surround. That's really creating those really cool ambient swells. Again, phaser, doing a lot of heavy lift in there. And an EQ just to really like zone in on the mid-range. The next sound I added was just a bass, and again, for the intro section, I just went for long held out bass notes, just like in the Y. Again, another sound just in the stock patches here that you're going to get with Vital, Moog Pluck, Moog Pluck. I sung into my phone, into my voice notes app, and I just let this play round and round and just recorded like about a minute's worth of me just singing in this key. And obviously you knew I had to process that because I can't sing very well at all. This is good source for making your own vocal samples. So not saying anything in particular, but I knew that it was just going to add to the texture and vibe that was in the tune. Now, free auto-tune alternative here, Graylon 3. It's not quite as clean as auto-tune, but for the purposes of this tutorial, it's going to work just fine. Down here, you can put the key in. You can change actually the formant, which is a good trick like little Autoboy does in a pay plugin. Origin again, phaser again. Now I've got a free sidechain plugin, STFU. You'll see what I'm doing here. On its own, it sounds a bit clicky, not so good, but in the mix, it comes across really nicely. Just using this shape here to kind of bring the sound in and out. EQ in this really to give it that mid-range kind of EQ, again, like a telephone. And then this ring shifter, adding a little bit more grit and distortion. And then I doubled that sound and just pitched it up a whole octave. Instead of using my favorite paid plugin, I just did this in Logic itself, which you can do here. And I know in FL, there's an option to do this as well within Edison. Same plugins, and I just panned one of these to the right, one of these to the left slightly. I added a static sound and a tiny little vocal chop. These little chops are just from Monty Booker's kit that I use all the time. As this went along, I kind of varied this up a little bit. In the next sort of 4 bars, I dropped in the drums. If I solo out the drums. Now I open the drums without any hats in, which is a common trick that people do with their arrangements. When the hats do come in, they just add and take the groove up another notch and just let that bounce really come through. So nothing too crazy here. I did kind of go for that Sonder syncopated type pattern, which you heard in a lot of like 90s R&B. Tell you what, I'm going to just run the click and you can hear how these drums sound against the click track. Got that little sweep that's just like anticipating the next section coming in. When I come to the next section, I bring the hats in and I anticipate the hats just before that section as well. So you want those skippy snares if you're going to try and copy this kind of sound to ga, 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 ga. Experiment with your snare placement, experiment with velocities as well, just about what feels good and what you think works for you. I also sidechained the kick and the bass, so I just put a compressor on my bass and I let the bass duck down a few dB every time the kick plays. You can see that dancing there with the side chain. Brought in a slide synth. Again, I've used this patch before. You'll hear that coming in from bar 9. It just adds another little thing for the ear to catch up. It's just about adding subtle variation in here. And then at bar 13, I drop the chords down G major rather than, you've got that C to a B. I'm using pretty much the same sounds and just the clap that I use as well underneath the main skippy clap in the first section. So guys, if you got something out of this, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.